Section 4.8, Applications of Polynomial Equations and Functions. A second-degree polynomial equation in one variable is often called a quadratic. Then we have something called the zero product rule. So if I tell you that I'm thinking of a number, any number, and I ask you to give me a number, and let's say you give me the number 10, and I say, okay, I'm going to multiply my number times 10, and the result is 0. What does my number have to be? It has to be 0. If you multiply two numbers together and you get 0, then one of those numbers has to be 0. So if A times B equals 0, then A equals 0, B equals 0, or both. So let's use that to solve this equation. Now, this equation is already set up so that it equals 0. And the left-hand side looks factorable. Factoring is something that's in our bag of tools now. We know how to factor. So let's go ahead and factor. So we know it's an x and an x. What are the signs? A plus and a plus. Which two factors of 36 do we want to use? 4 times 9, and that gives us an outside of 9x and inside of 4x. That gives us our middle term of 13x. So now we're multiplying these two numbers together. X plus 4 represents one number and x plus 9 represents another. And when we multiply them together, we get 0. That means one of them has to be 0. Either this is 0 or this is 0, which means x has to be -4 or x is -9. One of those has to be true. In general, to solve an equation using the zero product rule, we need to get 0 on one side of the equation, simplify the other side if necessary. We need to factor the other side, set each factor equal to 0, and then solve the resulting equations. Let's solve these example problems. So we don't have equals 0 here. We must have equals 0. I don't want that 54 there. Now what? Let's factor. What do you put in first? What are the signs? How are we going to factor 54 so that we end up with minus 3x? So that we've factored. Now we set each individual factor equal to 0 and solve. So we have two solutions. You can substitute those back into the original equation and see that they work. They give us the correct answer. What's the first thing we need to do? We need equals 0. I prefer for my x squared term to be positive, so I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. How can we factor this? Greatest common factor is? So we have the product of two numbers equal to 0, so either the first is 0 or the second is 0. which means x is 0, or let's add 5 to both sides and divide by 3. Two solutions. Substitute them both back into the original equation. You can see 0 checks, it's easy. 5/3, a little more work. Verify that those are correct solutions. We don't have equals 0. This is kind of bothersome because it's factored on the left, but we don't care. Factoring does us no good whatsoever unless we have equals 0. So we might as well multiply that out, subtract 48 from both sides, and then factor. What are the signs? How are we going to factor 48? A 6 and an 8 looks like it would work. Where does the 6 go? Where does the 8 go? That gives us positive 2x for our middle term. So x plus 8 equals 0, x equals negative 8. X minus 6 equals 0, x equals 6. You can verify that those are the correct answers by substituting them into the original equation. So, given that f of x equals 8x squared minus 6x, find all values of x for which f of x equals 9. F of x is 9, so we'll put a 9 where f of x was, and that gives us this equation. How do we solve this equation? What do we need to do first? Let's get 0 by subtracting 9 from both sides. Look at this. Oh my goodness. We have to factor this. So, there's two possibilities here. We need to get 8x squared. It could be 8x times x, that's one possibility, or 4x times 2x. That's our other possibility. It's minus 9, so what are our signs? Let's just guess a plus and a minus. Could be a minus and a plus, we don't know, we'll have to wait and see. So factors of 9, 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Which ones are we going to use and into which set of parentheses? That gives us minus 12x plus 3x is minus 6x. So this is our correct factoring here. Now what? We need to solve for x. Let's set the individual factors equal to 0. Solve for x. Set the add 3 to both sides, divide by 2, and we have two solutions, negative 3/4, positive 3/2. So that's the end of the first part of 4.8. You'll have to go to the next video, 4.8b, to finish up 4.8.